Mindset Game podcast, and I'm your host, James Roberts. Before we get started with this week's show, first off, let me take this opportunity to welcome back the regular listeners. And if this is your first time listening to the show, I hope you enjoy this episode and decide to subscribe to the show. And on today's show, I've got Devon Harris. He is one of the original members of the 1988 Jamaican bobsled team and captain of the 92 and 98 teams. Three-time Olympian, Devon achieved his grand dream. His current dream is to inspire others to achieve theirs, tapping in the energy and determination and skills that enables him to bobsleigh with the best in the world. Devon, as an inspirational, motivational keynote speaker, is now sparking audiences of all ages to dream and take their game to the next level. So welcome to the show, Devon.
Hey, James. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate being here.
So before we delve into today's topic, Devon, can you talk us back, obviously, going back to your early days in Jamaica, obviously, to get into the heights of becoming a three-time Olympian?
Yeah, sure. Was born and raised in Kingston. Interestingly enough, a place called Olympic Gardens. It seemed like I was destined to become an Olympian. It turns out, though, a little historical context. I think the first Olympian from that neighborhood was Arthur Wint. Olympic Gardens, I think, took its name from that quartet that competed in the 4x4, that amazing 400 meter carder that we had with Wint, Roden, McKinley, and I'm missing one. Arthur Wint, George Roden, Herb McKinley, and oh my God, I just drew a blank. But in any event, I think that's how my neighborhood got its name. And eventually, we had a guy, Mike McCallum, who was a boxer. I think he competed in 1984 as a boxer. I think he was a middleweight, and he ended up becoming a really good professional, the body snatcher they called him. And then there was myself, and then of course now there's Shelley and Fraser Price. Olympic Gardens, though, when I was growing up back in the late 70s, 80s, was a really rough neighborhood, very violent, impoverished. And so that's kind of the environment I grew up in. My big dream was to become an army officer. That was the biggest thing that drove me back then. And I did, I ran track. I was a 800 and 1500 meters. So now here it is, I'm a kid growing up in Jamaica, the sprint capital of the world. I mean, we are more so now than then. But, that sprinting was our forte. And my idol was Sebastian Coe. Because he was at the time the best, 800 and 1500 meter runner in the world, in my mind anyway. So after high school, I enlisted in the Jamaica Defense Force, made my way to Sandhurst and got my officer training and became an officer. Got back to Jamaica, and this is about 1987 now, and thinking, wow, the Olympics are coming up in Seoul. 1988, maybe I can, if I start running again and I could get fit enough to qualify for the Olympics. And here we are, me talking to you as a three-time Olympian, Winter Olympian.
Well, we touched upon it off air about obviously the similarities. Obviously, my generation, obviously growing up, I was born only 2 years prior to you competing in Calgary. I obviously know of the 88 bobsleigh team because of Cool Runnings, but we touch upon it. They kind of, base it. They say they base it on a true story, but you say it's a little bit fictional in some cases. Can you explain it? How far away from the truth they actually went?
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier that when the credits are rolling, it says, based on the true story of the Jamaica bobsled team or something to that effect. And there are two words that are missing very loosely. It should say very loosely based on the true story. So So here are the facts, James. There was a bobsled team from Jamaica. We had problem finding funding. We competed in Calgary and we crashed. That's it. I mean, everything else they either made up or they stretched the truth to make it funny. So, but it was entertaining.
But do you think maybe it's elevated bobsleigh in a way to maybe a little bit more importance that people of, you could say in an essence, obviously the summer games obviously gets more publicity than the winter game. Do you think that film has maybe helped elevate the winter games a little bit more because of the film?
Yeah, absolutely. I might be wrong. I don't know this for sure, but I think ours was the first movie about the winter games. And then came The Miracle of '84 a few years ago, and then Eddie the Eagles movie. So for sure, Cool Runnings elevated the winter games. It elevated bobsledding. We're definitely the only movie about Olympic bobsledding, and it has certainly given us. It has immortalized us in a way that we never could have imagined. When we competed back in '88.
Well, you could say it's inspired, obviously, the future generation to want to go either side of it, winter or summer. It's probably, okay, I didn't aspire to make it to the Paralympics, but obviously that's a film, I think it would have come out in the mid to late 90s. So that would be filmed like what kind of gives you that determination you can be that underdog and you can, you didn't, in the film, obviously, and in true life, you didn't go to the, that fairy tale story going from nothing to winning. That's probably unrealistic in a sporting sense. A film might be able to do it, but it kind of says, well, the underdog can make it if they put that work ethic in.
No, absolutely. I think the film is, I have no issues with it not being, truly true to life. I have no issues with it being a comedy. Because it's still the kind of film I would enjoy watching. It's a human interest story with some really powerful, positive messages. And so what I find is, and I've met people from all over the world over the years who, many of them are not even athletes, but they have been inspired by the movie because what it's saying to them, and you're absolutely right, is that, there are underdogs that exist outside of the sporting arena as well. And many people who have these dormant dreams that they were just afraid to go after because it just seemed so impossible. And now they see these 4 guys from Jamaica truly pursuing an impossible dream. And no, we did not win the Olympic medal, the gold medal, but we certainly gave it a good run and made tremendous progress. And so people are looking at that and going, wow, oh, if they can do it, maybe I can do this in this area of my life as well, and who knows where that could reach. But at the same time, I have met athletes who ended up in bobsledding because of Cool Running. So it's been a positive influence all around.
But Devon, do you think because you overcome that adversity, and we talked about that obviously off air, it was kind of Jamaica was, I won't say a laughing stock, but you weren't taken seriously to start with. But by obviously doing it, do you think that elevated that respect and you were put on level footing?
And that's true not just for us and our experience in bobsledding back in '88. It's true for anyone who's trying something that is kind of out of the box. People are going to laugh. It's just human nature, I think. I was about to say we're not designed to think out of the box, but that's not true. We are designed to think out of the box. We have allowed ourselves to be conditioned to have a fixed mindset, as it were. And so when one decide that, hey, I'm going to embrace this other side of me that says, wow, the possibilities are endless. People seem to have their natural reaction seem to be, oh no, that's impossible. That doesn't make sense. It can't work. You must be stupid or whatever it is. And um, we all come across, those kinds of reactions throughout our lives. And it's those people, those of us who decide, despite the fact that it is, a pretty tall order, and it doesn't help that people are telling you it can't happen. When you go out and strive and you keep on pushing, nonetheless, it's kind of when you go, wow, you sometimes surprise yourself, but you're definitely encouraging yourself and becoming more emotional resilient to take on bigger challenges.
But also we did touch upon, like off air, about between the pushcart derbies that is synonymous with Jamaica and the bobsleigh. Obviously you were saying for people to want to do either sport, there must be something wrong with them upstairs or a bit cuckoo. What do you think that is, and what kind of pushed you towards wanting to do that? Because obviously you said you wouldn't want to do the pushcart derby anyway.
Oh no, that's crazy. Why would I do that? No, you know what? I have never done pushcart derby. I have no interest in doing it. There are some similarities between pushcart and bobsledding. Two crazy guys going down the side of a mountain, and it's dangerous. That's probably where the similarities end, because bobsled drivers in the front of the sled, the pushcart drivers at the back of the cart. They don't go nearly as fast as we go, that kind of stuff. For me, though, and I mean, I joke around, about not wanting to do pushcart, but bobsledding is definitely more dangerous. And the reason why I do bobsledding is it's really for a higher purpose, if you will. I'm getting a chance to represent my countrymen. And I've always wanted, obviously, to represent my country. That's why I had dreams of competing in 800 and 1500 meters at the Olympics. I never dreamt that I'd become a Jamaican bobsledder. And I don't know that when the idea of the team came about, that I was going, wow, this is going to end up with us having this conversation. It was, wow, here's an opportunity, albeit a different one, but here's an opportunity for me to live the dream, to realize the dream of competing and representing my country at the Olympic Games. And if I had to take a bobsled to do it, yeah, why not?
But let me ask you this question then, Devon. If you had to choose between competing in the 800 or the 1500 in the Summer Games, or competing in the bobsleigh, and obviously what fame that has brought at the back of it, would you still choose the life that's obviously been put in front of you?
Yes, because it's so different and so unique, and I have a chance to make a much bigger impact on the world outside of myself, as opposed to, had I gone to LA and our Seoul and won the 800 or the 1500. Yeah, it would be remarkable, but that's where the story would have ended. I don't know that we would have inspired as many people as we have inspired over the years around the world as our story has done as bobsledders.
Do you think it's because it's that term we say, because it was you would associate Jamaica with the track and field, and is it because it's that, we could say, quote unquote, abnormal event to do something within the winter games, because Jamaica is synonymous with the sunshine?
Yeah, it is exactly that. It is so out of the box. It again seems so impossible, and the thing I think that resonates with people the most is the fact that it seems so impossible, but we went after it, and it reminded them of the dreams that they didn't go after or were shy about going after because it seemed so impossible. And they're like, wow, if these guys can do that, I mean, it's not, so out of the realm to expect a guy as much as we are the sprint capital of the world, to go to the Olympics and go, say, win an 800-meter race. And that's maybe different, but it's not that far a stretch. To go bobsledding now, that's a stretch, and that's more inspiring.
But would you not say that Jamaicans, even though that you're competing on ice, would you not have that pedigree of having the fastest starts, so to speak, because you have that brand coming from the other side?
That's only half of the race. That's a challenge, I mean, if you look at our 88 performance, although we had just started in the sport, months prior, and in fact, the 4-man event, that the Olympics were our very first race. We had never raced 4-man before. Chris Stokes, that was his first week in the sport. And that's why I said earlier, that in a way, the true story was even more remarkable than you see in the film. But if people put that in the film, you'll go, come on, that's corny. That doesn't make sense. 3 days? But that's how much time Chris had to train. So the years of training and honing our athletic skills in Jamaica, we're able to take that and translate it into a really good start. But we had not spent the time necessary to learn how to drive the sled. So coming off the hill with the fastest start, or in our case in Calgary, the 7th fastest start, was awesome. But then we know how the story ends.
But that story they bring up in the actual film with the 4 guys in the bathtub, is there any truth to that in bobsleighing at all, or is that just absolutely farcical?
That's just Hollywood, man, trying to be entertaining. I mean, I don't even know what the point would be to be sitting in a bathtub, turning left and right. You go look on the track. Oh yeah, this one goes left, this one goes right. Okay, cool. Memorize that, and you're good.
Well, I can see where you're coming from in terms of that. But do you think it was maybe and we touched upon it earlier, to look at the laid-back approach of Jamaicans and kind of exaggerate it even further?
Yeah, that was Hollywood at its best, trying to be entertaining. It was a comedy. I mean, I guess the lesson, if I could be charitable, is that the fact that in the movie the guys are pulling out all stops to learn this thing and to work as a team, and so that's why you're seeing there them going really above and beyond and still learning to work as a team to achieve this particular goal.
And if we kind of move to like the modern day now, Devon, with Jamaica, obviously you don't have access to track time in Jamaica. Where are some of the places that you've got to obviously travel to? I would assume probably the US or Canada.
Yeah, so the last, I've since 2014 kind of assumed the role of developing the next generation of Jamaican bobsledders, and we've actually spent our time in North America. So there are 4 tracks here: Lake Placid, New York, Park City, Utah, and then in Canada we have Calgary and Whistler in British Columbia. So we have spent in the summer you spend your time in Jamaica training, and then come autumn into winter you're here in North America traveling around and racing.
So would you say they're a disadvantage a bit like, we could probably put on the likes of say the British team as well? You're on the back foot from the off because you don't have the track time of say the US, Canada, the teams in Europe, say Switzerland, Germany, and etc. Do you think that's the case straight away?
I mean, in one sense, yes, because it would have been helpful. But look, there are tons of teams in the sport without tracks. If you think about it, when we got in the sport, the US had only 1. Canada had just gotten theirs in Calgary. France didn't have 1. Norway didn't have 1. Japan didn't have 1. There are a bunch of other countries still don't have. So we don't see, while it is a disadvantage in the sense that you don't have a home track to get extra ice time on, it's just one of the things that, one of the hands that you've been dealt with. So you work with it. And since the tracks won't come to you, you just go to the tracks.
But then you could say on the flip side of that, no one track is the same anyway.
This is true as well. I mean, all the tracks are very different, although, just being able to go down a bobsled track and hone the skills of maneuvering the sled, is of tremendous help no matter which track you're driving on. But yes, to be a complete bobsled driver, to be a world champion, you kind of have to learn, and to win the World Cup circuit, learn how to drive these different tracks.
And if we kind of move on to what you do now as a professional keynote speaker, how did that come about, obviously going from being an athlete?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Thanks for that. Back in 96, actually, I was, working towards competing in the Nagano Olympics. And I met a guy who wanted to be my agent. And he talked a really good game. And he was like, if I were an agent, I'd have you to do this and that and the other. And I'd never had an agent before, so it sounded kind of nice. But then one of the things that he introduced to me, one of the ideas he introduced was this idea of being a motivational speaker. And believe me, I don't know why, but I never knew that such a thing existed in 1996. And I said to him, that sounds good. I'd love to do that, but after the Olympics. And it turned out that his only purpose in my life was to tell me about motivational speaking, because he never did anything to help me to get to the Olympics. And, I went to the Olympics, but he had planted the seed. And long story short, I just came back and started speaking for free at, schools and Rotary clubs and, wherever people would listen. And it has kind of grown from that to us here having this conversation now.
Well, I think for me personally, it's kind of when I touch bases with you on Twitter, it's like, okay, this is the story that I've grown up with. Mm-hmm. But we get to actually meet the actual real person that's lived it. So I think for me, I won't say it's a dream come true, but it's kind of what inspired you as a youngster. You get to actually speak to the actual person behind it.
Yeah, I mean, and and one of the reasons why I'm grateful for the movie as well, because it allows someone like you and people who are obviously much younger than you to know the story or know the basis of the story, and then I get to go into their companies and tell the true story, but in a way that inspires and motivates them to go pursue their dreams. Because, as I said earlier, the true story is even more remarkable.
But I think they should maybe make a remake and kind of be a bit more truthful in terms of, because I think you could say, we touched upon Eddie the Eagles one. Mm-hmm. Well, you would say you guys achieved a little bit more than he did, and in the UK, he was probably a laughing stock in terms of, how can you make it to the Olympics? I think maybe it is the essence of what the Olympics is about, it doesn't matter where you come from. You are the best of your country, so why not compete? And I think maybe they've kind of gone away from that with making qualifying times. You have to meet a minimum criteria to enter. Well, it's like, that's a limiting factor for a lot of countries because they don't have the facilities.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I feel, I remember, Eddie didn't compete in '92 because, as far as I know, the British Olympic Committee didn't allow him to compete, which saddened me, because you're absolutely right. The Olympics are not just about the people who can win medals or contend for medals. It was founded by Pierre de Coubertin on the ideas that it's not about winning, but it's about competing. It's about showing up. And so therefore we're talking about having people if you can't win, if you can't guarantee us a top 10 finish, then you can't go to the Olympics. It saddens me because that's not what the Olympics are about.
Oh, but you can't guarantee anything in sport.
Exactly. You can't guarantee anything in life, but I fear that some of these governing bodies are demanding that kind of guarantee to in order to allow the athletes to compete in the Olympic Games.
But you got to give some people some scope in an essence, because with any sport, be it, I don't know, anything with as fine margins of things going right or wrong, somebody can have an awful day and they're expected to win. And you could be on the periphery of that and come out of nowhere. So you can't predict that's going to happen. So it's a difficult one. I can kind of see it from their point of view in some instances. But on the other hand, that person might come out of their skin, so to speak.
Yeah, well, let's go back to the ego situation, for example. Okay, maybe even our situation as well, where, one could reasonably assume, given the level of experience and exposure and funding and training and so on, it's not likely that we're going to win. But if we are able to qualify for the Olympics anyway, based on these standards, I don't see a reason why we or anybody else in that position shouldn't compete.
If we use your story, Devon, if you guys hadn't competed, the sport might not be where it is today.
And people would have been inspired the way they're inspired to even, be competing for some of the stronger nations, as we mentioned before, and so that's how I see it, that if the Olympics, everybody wants to see the winner, yes, and you enjoy that. But the reason why our story has such longevity is because the average person is better able to relate to our story. It's hard for them to see themselves as the Germans or the Americans or the Swiss or the Usain Bolts of the world. I mean, they are just phenomenal and they're in another world by themselves. But the eel from wherever in Africa is from, people can go, wow, I can relate to him. I may not be blessed with this tremendous athletic talent, but he's showing tremendous courage stepping out in the arena. So if I can harness that, whatever it is, and step out in my career or my business, maybe I can achieve some significant success as well. And that's what I think people are missing.
Well, I think it goes a little even deeper than that in terms of stepping into that arena. You're overcoming the stresses, anxiety that could bring with it from being a sports person. Okay, maybe, and I don't want to put words into your mouth, because you're not expected to do that well, it maybe takes the pressure off, but I don't know if that was the case.
No, because you're not. I'm speaking for myself. You're there to try and win. The hill might be this steep, but you're not there, I assure you, to just compete and be there to entertain. You're there to give up your absolute best, man, and then let the chips fall where they may.
I think I use a good quote in terms of somebody asked me, what's it like to represent your country? I think you're doing it for yourself. You're doing it for your family, your town. And I probably didn't put it in the right words. I said you're doing it for them and yourself. But I think you don't want to let them down or yourself, because you are, in all essence, putting your town on the map.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, you're representing the country. That's why you're there first and foremost. But yeah, you're doing it for yourself. You're doing it for your family. You're doing it for your community. And when all is said and done, and you're done with all the television interviews, you have to go home. You have to go home. You have to face your family and your friends and your neighbors. And they're going to bring judgment. Win, lose, or draw. I think more importantly, they're going to look at you and go, well, did you try hard enough? Did you do your best? And I think no matter what, win, lose, or draw, the question is, did you give your all? Did you strive for excellence? Did you do your best? And sometimes your best isn't good enough, and that's why I didn't win. We understand that. But if in the moment, that's all you have and you gave it all, that's all you can ask for.
And Devon, do you think it was because of that crash in '88 that you came back for the next two, or was it that determination and drive you had as an athlete anyway?
That reinforced the drive and the resolve to come back for sure. But it was unfinished business. We took on this task in '88, and I guess had some unrealistic aims, thinking that we could take this thing up and in 4 months, be contending for a medal. Sure, at the start, we had really good start times, but that's from the years of work prior in athletics that took us there. And so when we crashed, it was like, whoa, this can't be the end of the story. We definitely need to come back. And that's what took me back to in '98 as well. I mean, there are other issues that you have to deal with, especially the lack of funding that kind of really challenge the way you can prepare. But the heart was there, and we came back and did everything we could.
So talk to me about the mindset, obviously going from 92 to 98, because obviously they did it so the summer games and the winter games were separate. But what does that actually do to a Winter Olympian's mindset going from a 4-year cycle to a 6-year cycle?
Oh, so well, for me, that actually with the Winter Olympics, they went from 92 to 94, and then it went into a 4-year cycle. And I had just retired from the Jamaica Defense Force and moved to New York. I was trying to get myself settled in, so I didn't get a chance to compete in '94. Because I was settling in. So the mindset remains the same in terms of, hey, this is this is the end goal. We know when the Olympics are, this date in '98, and you work backwards. You have some knowledge and experience from the prior 2 Olympic Games as to kind of what you need to do to train. And so the challenge is now trying to put all of those pieces in place. Which can be challenging, which was challenging for me actually trying to get into the Nagano Olympics. But that's kind of your focus. These are the things I need to do every day. These are the things I can control. Let me control them. Let me get up. Let me go to the gym. Let me work out. Let me go to the track. Let me make the phone calls to try and get the funding. These things you can control. Is it frustrating at times when you're making all of that effort and you're not seeing the results? Absolutely. And that was a case for me. But in the end, I got the sponsorship and I competed in the Olympics. I qualified. Much higher standard than existed in '88 to qualify. But I did it. And so here I am, a 3-time Olympian.
Well, I think that's to be commended in terms of having that gap and then still wanting to continue on with that drive. But kind of going forward now and kind of looking towards the future, Devon, obviously as a personal, motivational speaker and also in charge of the Jamaican bobsleigh team, what are kind of the outlooks you have for, say, maybe the next 5 to 10 years?
Certainly in terms of the team, we're starting over from scratch. We had a team in Sochi, and then those guys retired. So we started over from scratch, and so it's a building process. It's been a slow process, and I understand that we're pushing hard to get what I'm going to call competitive results now, but knowing that it's a process, and so you're absolutely right asking about the next 5 years, because I've always said, in terms of the team, I think in 2 Olympic cycles. And so as we work to get into the Korean Olympics next year, yes, I have to think about the next Olympic Games in China in 5 years, where we hope to would have built not just on the last 3.5 years and the experience in Korea, but be getting ourselves to, hopefully be legitimate medal contenders by 2022. And in my speaking, man, it's a similar thing where my mantra is keep on pushing, and so as I work to get better at my craft, at being on stage and really inspiring people, touching them and engaging them in a way that's going to inspire them and allow them to feel motivated to go pursue their own dreams. I also have to look on the business side of it as well, and how I'm going to grow that so I can be more effective as a speaker and as a businessman.
And my last question, Devon, before we wrap up the episode, if you had to summarize what we've talked about into one sentence, what would that be for people to take away?
I would say, your mindset impacts how you think and hence the results you get, which obviously reinforces your belief system, your mindset, and how you think. And so I would want to, it's more than a sentence now, but want to encourage people to embrace this, the success mindset. Understand that none of us were designed for mediocrity, but that our potential is limitless. And so if you can embrace a success mindset, that would allow you to think outside of the box and really push yourself. It will broaden your belief, strengthen your belief, give you better results, which only creates this upward spiral in our lives.
I love that little mantra that you've shared with us. So, Devon, once again, thanks for coming on the Mindset Game podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I almost said us. Thanks for having me. It was great to be hanging out with you.
Oh, it's my pleasure for having you on. And obviously, like I said in the episode, it's good to actually get the person that you see on the movie screen and actually speak to them in real life.
Yeah, man. It's great to be here. Thank you.
And before I forget, I would really appreciate it if you would be so kind as to leave a short written review, as it helps to get the podcast more notoriety and it would be more visible in future to others, and thus helping more people, which my guests and I are all about. Once again, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time for another episode of the Mindset Game podcast.